Good afternoon. This is Tammy Weber at Marshall, Parker & Weber, and today Patty Jo Turner, one of our longstanding case managers, and I are going to talk to you about the family meeting. And I'm excited, Patty Jo. I'm looking on the slides and who's on. We have some of our favorite clients that are on. I'm just going to continue talking. We're having a little technical difficulties with advancing the slides, but we're glad that you're all on there. Now you see our pictures, and so we're now advancing. So there I am, in case you didn't know who I was, and Patty Jo Turner, who's been with the firm for 21 years. My normal attorney disclaimer is this: what we're talking about today, most of it is non-law, but if anything comes up in terms of a law question, we'll answer your questions or discuss it with whatever the law is at the time. Things change often, so just be aware of that. So today, sometimes our clients call this a family meeting, having a family circus. I'm guessing we can all relate to our families. There's a dysfunction in every family. And as we always say, just acknowledge it, embrace it, and plan for it. So we've had some clients that came in before and they did some planning, and we're going to call them the Keane family. Patty Jo, do you want to tell us about the Keane family?
I would be happy to. So the Keanes, Bill and Thelma, lovely couple. He's 80, she's 79. He's now a retired cartoonist and a veteran. Thelma has always been a homemaker. And to this point, like many people of their generation, they have not shared any of their planning with their children. The children, there are 4 of them. The oldest is Billy. He's 59. He lives close by with his wife and children. Their daughter, Dolly, also lives close by. She's single, and she's the person that really is the most help to Thelma and her husband. They like to include her in family events, and she's the one that they call when something needs done. Their younger child is Jeff. He's married. He's got a couple of stepkids, and he's very well off. He has garnered himself a name in the talk show world, and he is financially stable. The last child is PJ, and in every family there's always one child who might need a little more help. In this case, for the Keanes, it's PJ. There has been a loan from mom and dad to PJ in the past. He is paying it back, but it's happening at a trickle more than a flow.
So it might not happen. Full repayment.
Full repayment is a goal, but not necessarily set in stone.
So the Keanes came in, and we've done some planning, and you can see what their assets are. Several are their residential property and their cabin property are already owned by an irrevocable trust. They did some planning to think about if they would need nursing home care in the future. They do have a brokerage account, and their financial advisor, who's on the team with their lawyer, helps manage it. Some of the money is in the irrevocable trust, and some has a designation for transfer on death, or TOD. They have checking and savings at 3 banks, and the retirement accounts do have beneficiaries' name, which is very important for things that have deferred tax consequences. They have some life insurance policies. They have some PPL, MetLife stock. They've already prepaid and pre-planned their funeral and burial, so that they've been on it. They have some vehicles, and they have a very valuable comic collection. And they have a safe deposit box that they really haven't gotten into for a while. Probably they should close. So they came to see us and said, What should we do next? None of our kids really know about this plan. Is it important, Tammy and Patty, to tell them about it? So we talked to them and we said, well, here's the issue. We like family meetings. Timing is really key. The reason for it is to share relevant information. And depending upon people's age and station in life and how much fun or dysfunction is in the family, you might share relevant information. Definition may change. But you want to prevent surprises. And you want to make sure that everybody's on the same page. So in this example, perhaps Bill and Thelma might have decided, we don't really think PJ is going to pay us back. And so when we die, we want to make sure that all four of our children are treated the same. And so they may make a provision in their will or their trust that says, if there's any loans outstanding, we would like that to be counted as part of what PJ or any other our children would receive. So that's a big surprise. You don't want to have PJ really not happy when mom and dad are gone and realize he's not getting an equal share. You want to introduce your family members to your advisors. So they have a financial advisor, could be your attorney, could be your banker, whatever it is that helps you with your planning. They could be there at this first family meeting, introduction. It does help your family. They're more comfortable working together with somebody they've already met. And if you become incapacitated, it's important that you don't have to add a newness to a crisis. And then sometimes the explaining what guided your choices, I referred to one example already. If Bill and Thelma are letting the kids know, hey, we want you all four to end up in the same place at the end when we're gone, then the kids are going to know it. Sometimes there might be an outburst, but we'll get to that. So I think the next issue is, who do you invite to participate? We touched on this a little bit. So on the slide, you see your adult children, maybe the siblings, or if you don't have any family, close friends, your accountant. As you can see on the slide, a big tip is really try to have everybody involved. If you let somebody out of the meeting, because we know Jeffy lives in California and may not want to come in, probably should be on the phone, because that could create more issues. It could create what I call the whisper down the lane issues. If one's not on the phone and the other three may resort to their infantile behavior and start going, hey, mom and dad like me more, we're going to get more money, and Jeffy isn't there, could create a big problem.
It's really tempting to leave out the child you expect to create the most ruckus, but this is really a safe place for you to be able to put things out there for everybody. And we all know everybody tends to behave a little better in a group scenario than they might one-on-one. So full inclusion is what we recommend.
Excellent. So the next really thing is, how do you know what you're going to talk about? Again, as with anything related to estate planning or your financial life, you got to be clear. So we recommend creating agendas. Now, this may sound weird, but it creates a framework. It allows the parents to decide, these are the 4 things I'm going to talk about. We're not going to go beyond those 4 things. Sometimes it's good to send those out ahead of time to the children, the other attendees. Sometimes surprise is best. Everybody sits down, they all have an agenda. Now, I think we really need to say, you don't want to put something on that agenda you're not willing to discuss. So it might be an overview. Often, Patty, when we see our clients and they've done trust planning, we may share with the kids that a trust is established, but we don't necessarily share with the children how much mom and dad are worth, right?
We can tell them that there's a framework in place and that the overall goal is equalization between all the kids, but how we get there is maybe a level of detail that doesn't have to happen at this point.
Okay. And sometimes it might not be the family meeting. We're going to talk about it, but we might not want to go into the health issues. Or we may want to talk about the health issues only and wait for finances till later.
Leave out the money.
Okay. So what else will we be covering? So typically, if the attorney is there, and I recommend this, once I think we had a client try the family meeting at home. Didn't work too well. There should be a professional there. Doesn't necessarily have to be the attorney, but if the attorney is there, it's good to start with, well, what happens if Bill or Thelma become incapacitated? How does this power of attorney work? So powers of attorney are those documents that apply while you're living. So the attorney would say, this is how it works. Here are the options that your agent has, what they can do. Or you may just want to say, here's who the agent is. Bill and Thelma, they're competent. They're the primary agent for each other. And then we've picked backups with amongst you children or other professional advisors if it comes to finances. And then you might want to stop and get a feel of the room. Because obviously if you have chosen a backup agent that doesn't want to do it, it's a good time to know it then, rather than when a moment of crisis or incapacity happens. Advanced directives, those are the documents some people call living will or end-of-life measures. Can be a good time to discuss that, Patty Jo.
I think that especially if there are differences between your children in how they might respond to an end-of-life situation, this is a gentler way for you to be able to address your own finality and the way you would like those circumstances to be handled when there's not a crisis. And everybody can hear the same thing at the same time. It takes a little bit of the emotional sting out if no one is already sick or already facing a crisis. So this is a nice, softer way to talk about a difficult topic.
And often clients frame it in, remember when Mrs. Smith down the street went to the hospital and, her family was all crazy and nobody knew where the papers were, or one of the children wanted her hooked up to life support and the other one didn't, and they hadn't had a conversation. And remember how that just went poorly for poor Mrs. Smith. Probably didn't have her wishes carried out because there wasn't any pre-communication. And then sometimes you can talk about your healthcare preferences. There's that lovely magnet that says, doesn't it, Patty, be careful how you treat your children?
They're going to choose your nursing home.
Right. So same thing with caregiver preference. As people age, their friends or their contemporaries might be facing the same health issues, and they talk amongst each other. So they may know that Mrs. Smith down the street used XYZ company to help her, and she was not happy, and she went through one or two till she found the one she liked. The other thing is, when you're feeling comfortable, take the tours of personal care homes or nursing homes. Sometimes after the first family meeting, there is a family field trip. And they go around all together, and most facilities are very welcoming. It's great if you have an appointment ahead of time to make sure that everybody is there, or your hospital, or whatever your preferences are.
We have had clients where there is a child. In the case of the Keanes, it might be Dolly, who is dead set that she is going to care for her parents, that she's going to keep them home, and she will move heaven and earth to make that happen. But Bill and Thelma may actually not want that. Sometimes it's a matter of recognizing that much proximity with a child, even when they love dearly, will be difficult. Sometimes they really don't want to be a burden on their children's day-to-day lives. They would like to continue enjoying a parent-child relationship without the burden of caregiving. So this is where mom and dad can say, thank you so much, that's lovely, but we would like to go somewhere where we have a little more independence, or where we can control things, and then you can just come and be our daughter. So it might be, it's not a presumed fact that everyone wants to stay at home and have their kids move in with them. So this is where you can tell them that.
And if Billy, Jesse, and PJ are all hearing at the same time as Dolly, they may be able to gently remind her in the future if this issue comes up. So, as you know, when you pass on, your power of attorney no longer has any effect, and your will would be the document or your beneficiary designations that would apply. So this can get a little tricky. And that's where age and circumstances and health come in. Once you start discussing your will with your family, they know about it. And in 5 years, if something happens and you want to change your will or your beneficiaries for some reason, and it changes the way your 4 children or your beneficiaries receive things, then there's a possibility for a challenge when you die. So these are things you want to talk through and be very, very honest with your attorney and your advisors as to the dynamics in your family. But one that we see, who could be upset about charitable giving, but we've seen it. We've seen families, especially as the parents start aging, on a positive spin, they say, my kids have done great, they have plenty of money. I have a charity and I want to give most, if not all of it, to a charity. This will be a good time to talk about it.
Much better time than after the will, you're gone and the will is being looked at for the first time by the kids, who assumed, and maybe rightly so, that they were all in for a quarter share of the comic book collection, and turns out Mr. Keane preferred to donate that to the local museum or some other organization to be sold and profit for them. So it's a good idea to let your intentions be known if you think that it might be problematic.
And sometimes in a will, clients create certain kinds of testamentary trusts instead of just allowing them to have the money. They may have a child who's a spendthrift, or they might have a child who's influenced by their significant other, or they may have a child with a gambling problem or an alcohol problem. So having a testamentary trust is a protection, actually, but hearing it a little bit ahead of time is good. As we've already noted, the differences in the shares between your beneficiaries, it might be a good time to say it. In this situation, we've often had a child caregiver like Dolly that lives next door, keeping the parents and helping them, and the parents come into us and they say, well, we'd like to give her some more money because she's done so much. Well, we've also seen the child in California upset because they're not there and they don't get it. And why should Dolly get more money than them? So this is a very good time to just generally say, Dolly refuses to take any money during lifetime, and we really are thinking that we might give her a little bit more when we pass on. And then at the time, the attorney can talk about what the executor does. So the executor job, of course, is to follow the will, the document itself. And again, we see some families and we see some parents who think, oh, we need to go into age order. And oh my, if we don't pick, Billy is the oldest, there's going to be hurt feelings. So these things you've already discussed with your lawyer, and then you can just share, hey, here's why. This person is closer. They're going to have to wrap up some things with real estate. And then this is a good time to say to the family, because often families wonder, well, if my parents are gone, how does all this tax thing work, and what do I have to do, and how is that handled? And so maybe it's a good time to generally explain to the family, the attorney can do so, how the estate administration process works, both for things under the will and also to administer the trust that they had set up earlier. And as I noted, in the power of attorney, maybe the executor that they've chosen doesn't want to serve. Better to know it now rather than later.
Absolutely.
So the next thing we could go to is the trust. And trusts are a little bit different. And sometimes if the Bill and Thelma had chosen only a couple of their children as the trustee, they may not be familiar with what it was. And we know Patty Jo about the real estate being in there. What could be an interesting issue with respect to this fact pattern?
Well, if you remember when we initially talked about the assets the Keanes have, they have the house and then they have their cabin. Those things are in the trust. And this may be a point of real contention for the children. It may be that PJ and his family use the cabin all the time. They love it. They have picnics there. There's a shared history. Whereas Jesse doesn't care so much. He doesn't live nearby. Dolly really hates the outdoors. So it may be a situation where Bill and Thelma would like to leave the cabin to PJ, but the cabin's in the trust. So the trust disposition and the way it pays out may look different than the will. And the parents may or may not choose to make adjustments, either in their assets or what's passing through their will, or even within the trust, to try and equalize that. But that's an example of where you may have two buckets that are being distributed and they may not look exactly the same.
And PJ, got 4 sandwiches, so apparently there's a history.
PJ's math skills are not off the charts by the look of things.
And then, now again, this might be the next meeting, or it could be just generally. The financial advisor might talk about the accounts. He or she may keep it to, here's where the accounts are. As we reviewed earlier, there were several checking accounts. There was some life insurance. The burial was prepaid. It might just say, hey, we have our binder from Marshall, Parker, and Weber. This is where the binder is. And then behind tab 10 is a list of all the banks and our account numbers. So if something were to happen unexpectedly to both of us at the same time, you would know where everything is. So the accounts, the names of all of the people at those various accounts, from the banker to the financial planner, to even the phone numbers for the life insurance companies and websites and the like, that's something that you could easily cover and say, we were organized. We've got it good to go.
Yeah, what a gift that is to the children right there.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes the accounts, how they're titled, or who the beneficiaries. Patty Jo mentioned that if the cabin is going to PJ, for example, maybe Bill and Thelma have decided that life insurance might not go to PJ. So it might be a good time to say, we're balancing out here. So what if something happens and your care is needed? This might be the next family meeting, or if something comes up with Bill and Thelma's health. Talking about caregivers or care managers. So we often recommend that children, especially the one that's responsible for taking mom or dad to the various appointments, have a copy, either a picture on their phone of mom and dad's Medicare card, their supplemental card, the list of their meds, have that all ready. Sometimes here's the doctor's report. You know, you have an option these days of printing those out.
Right when you leave. It's a nice way to include either the children, if it's mom and dad going, or if it's the one child, if Dolly's going. It's a nice way for her to keep her siblings in the loop, as it were, so that they don't feel shut out of mom and dad's medical information and decision making. But it doesn't have to be invasive. They can just know what the status of things is.
And if we were at the crisis time or just an acute time where mom or dad is having some kind of treatment, either in a facility, a personal care home, or a nursing home, there are various apps that can be used to basically share the healthcare notes. We put an example, Caring Bridge. We're not endorsing it. It's just there are just different options that you can Google. And if one child's there, they put the note in, everybody can see it. It keeps everybody, as Patty said, on the same page. Now, the sort of keep in mind, beware portion is things could come up in this meeting. Patty, have we heard about this?
You know, it's not that the family is not already aware of where the hot spots are. Everybody knows that PJ is not as good with money as Jeffy. It may just not be something that they've spoken about. So there is just no reason to avoid that conversation at this point, especially if you're incorporating it into your planning. But leaving it swept under the rug will probably not do anyone any favors. So those heated discussions can maybe dampened by actually having that information out on the table.
Yeah, and then especially with health, have the tissues ready, bottles of water for everybody. And sometimes even on your agenda, you might want to say, limit the time we're going to talk. It might be we're going to meet for an hour. Each of these 4 things is 15 minutes, or it might meet for 2 hours, whatever it is. Don't have overload on the very first meeting. And of course, you know, you're paying the lawyer. So that is another consideration. It looks like we have just a few minutes left. I'm looking to see if we have any questions. Our favorite clients aren't typing anything to us, so I'm guessing we've done a good job so far with them. I want to let you know, just as a reminder, there are other webinars that we've done on various topics, including the irrevocable trust, and we are also going to do part 2, the family meeting part 2, for those families who have family businesses. But all of these are saved to our website, palderlaw.com, and there's a little YouTube channel you could click on and look at any of them for a refresher or a reminder. It's been great talking to you today.
We have enjoyed this. I hope that we get to communicate again at the next meeting.
All right. Thank you very much, and have a great day.